Good morning. Today is Tuesday, August 11, and this is our first video lesson with IXL. And today what we're going to do is we're going to go back and look at algebra. This entire unit, Unit 1, is covering linear equations and operations. So a lot of this is review, and bear with me on that. Some of you, however, will not be familiar with this, and so this is your opportunity to get to better understand what evaluating rational expressions is about. Once you know what it is and can use it, then it becomes a very simple and easy tool that will really help you to move forward quickly with algebra. So what you're going to be able to do when you're done with this is evaluate variable expressions that have rational numbers. So a lot of people don't know what evaluate means. Some people don't know what a variable is. And then rational numbers, the term rational, a lot of people don't understand what that is. So let's get familiar with that. So first of all, when we're talking about evaluating, what we're doing is we're looking at an algebraic expression. So that would be like, maybe 2x plus 3 is an example of an expression. And you might even put an equal sign after it, but without something on the other side, other than my notation that that's an expression, it's not an equation. Okay, so we call this an expression, where it's just a variable with some numbers involved and an equal sign, and then we're supposed to come up with a solution on the other side. Now, to evaluate it, you've got to know what your variable is worth. What's its value? And so that's what the variable is talking about. So we want to evaluate or figure out what the variable expression in its totality, including the other number that's here, is worth. What is its value? And then again, that have rational numbers. What's a rational number? Well, that's where you're dividing two numbers, and those two numbers are called integers, into each other. So an example of an integer could be 1 divided by 2. An example of a rational number could be 1 divided by 2. 1 is an integer, and integers are numbers that have no fractional parts. So if I've got the number 1 here, it doesn't have a fractional part, it's just a number. So it's a whole number. It's a counting number. So we call those integers. And then if you're going to divide one number by another number that has no fractional parts, 2, then you come up with what we call a fraction, which is 1 divided by 2, and the fraction is a rational number. Okay? So you're starting out with two numbers that don't have fractional parts, and you're creating a fraction out of them by dividing one into the other. That's what you're going to be doing here. Okay? All right. So let's move on, and the next thing I show you looks like a shiny black sheet, or shiny blank sheet. This is something that we started doing when we did online work last semester. If you were with me then, you're familiar with it. If you weren't, this is new. So you guys are working online, and when you're working online, you can try to think this up in your head and come up with the right answer, but I can guarantee you that if you try to do that, you're going to be very frustrated in trying to pass these IXL exercises. So what you need to do is write it down. And some people, they got a little notepad and they write things down. They use a calculator, and I've got a calculator over here on the side, which we'll use in a moment. But a plastic sheet like this is a great idea. This is a plastic sheet that has inside it a blank sheet of paper. In this one, I just wrote the number 2 because it's the second page of my series. But you can see that that's what it is. So I slipped it in. Okay. And now, if I wanted to take a dry erase marker, so that this becomes a little mini whiteboard. You've got your own whiteboard. So this is an Expo dry erase marker. And if I wanted to write the number or the expression 1 divided by, or 1 over 2, let's say, which is 1 divided by 2, I've got it written down there. If I want to create 2x plus 4 equals some number unknown, okay, then I've got an expression, because that blank spot that I put there, which is was a box, and I just erased it with my finger, once it's filled out, it becomes an equation, but not until then. Even though I've got an equal sign here, would we call this an equation? It's an expression. So we're talking about an expression with variables in it, that's what this is, that will equal some rational number. That is a number where you've got two integers that have no fractions in them, that when divided one into the other will result in a fraction. So we'll take a look at that, and I'm just going to erase this. And then one other thing I'm going to show you is it's helpful to also have some grid paper. If you don't have grid paper and you need some, you can get it online. Just simply go and Google it, look for images, and you can take a screenshot, or you can cut and paste. There are many ways of doing it. That's what I did here. I just went to a website after Googling for mathematical grids and found this. I copied and pasted, and voila, I got it on my page. So this would be good if I wanted to graph, let's say, a linear equation. And as this unit is about, this unit 1, it's about working with linear equations, you're going to get an opportunity to do that. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the problem we're going to evaluate. So we're going to evaluate the following expression. 4, and now we are given a variable and its value, and a second variable and its value. We could have had just one variable here. There are two in this one, okay? And the expression that the two variables are in is st plus 5 equals, and then we don't have an answer. So this is an expression, okay, not an equation. All right, so now let's see what evaluation means. When you evaluate, you are substituting a variable for a number that it is equal to. Here, you will substitute negative 6.8 for s, and negative, and it's not negative 1.9, positive 1.9, so I'll change that, for t, okay? Let's make sure I wrote that right. This should be positive 1.9. And let me make sure that I did that in the rest of my work, but I believe I did. Yes, okay. So our expression is s, and it says st plus 5. Now notice I color-coded all of these because I want you to know that the bolded negative, or bolded black number here, negative 6.8, represents s. So I'm going to substitute negative 6.8 for this s. And over here, the 1.9, which is positive, I'm going to substitute that for t. And multiply these two numbers together and then add 5 to it. So, just restating it, let's go understand what s and t mean. st together, when you see that, what you're really looking at is a math operation. Normally you see a math operation, let's look at t plus 5, that's a math operation where you're adding 5 to t, okay? But when you see two letters together, that's a multiplication problem. So this means that the expression is telling you to multiply s times t and then add 5 to the result. Okay? All right, so we're going to do just that. So let's go on to our last slide here. So we set this up algebraically. We've got st, and remember st is really s times t, okay? Plus 5 equals, and then we don't know what it equals yet. So we're going to have to, because this is an expression, we're going to have to fill that void by going through and using PEMDAS to combine like terms. So use PEMDAS to combine like terms. Now, what is PEMDAS? That's your order of operations. You know, which do I do first? Do I add? Do I subtract? Do I multiply? Do I divide? Order of operations. Okay, all this should be old stuff for most people. Okay, and if you remember, P means parentheses. E means exponents. M means multiply. D means divide. And A means add. And S means subtract. So that's the order in which you would take operations with something like this expression here. So looking at this expression, what would I do first? Well, let's see. I don't have it. Well, I do have a parenthesis, so we deal with that. But inside the parentheses, there's just 1.9. So there's nothing you can do to that. So skip it. Exponents. Well, we don't have any exponents other than the power of 1. You know, each one of these numbers is the number to the power of 1. But because the power of 1 doesn't change the overall value, we don't deal with the exponents. Multiply. Well, that we've got. We're going to multiply negative 6.8 times 1.9. Now, hey, I can do this in my head. I'll probably get it wrong. Even Mr. Warren is not the greatest when it comes to that kind of thing in his head. But what I can do is I can get my calculator out. So in this case, we're multiplying together two numbers that have decimals in them. And decimals are always tricky, excepting when we're using a graphing calculator. So what do we do first? We turn it on. So we press the on button down here at the bottom. And when we do that, it gives us, oops, let me clear that. It gives us a blinking black square, or rectangle actually that is. And so then what we're going to do is we're going to type in negative 6.8. Now anything negative is a number that has a negative sign in front of it. In this case, the negative sign always comes first. It's not subtraction. You'll notice there's a subtraction sign here. These are operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. We don't want to mess with those for negative. We go down to this bottom button right down here, see it? And we press it. And what happens is it puts a negative sign up here at the top. Now we're going to type in 6.8, so 6.8. And we're going to multiply that times 1.9. So I go over here to my multiplication button, press it, and type 1.9, okay? And then click enter. And that gives us the number negative 12.92. And so you see it over here, negative 12.92. That was the answer that we got. But we're going to add 5 to it. So I'm just going to go over here to my plus sign, press that, and notice it says answer plus 5, or answer plus rather, and we're going to type 5 in there. So the answer, the negative 12.92 plus 5 is what that's saying. And then we hit enter again, and you get negative 7.92, and that is the answer that we needed to come up with on this. All right, so that's how you do these. Now, some of you are probably rolling around and saying to yourself, gosh, I don't understand, going back to this definition, this is going to be somebody who really thinks deep about this sort of thing. But let's see, where was that? It says that you're dividing two integers into each other. Okay, that's fine. But an integer is a number with no fractional part. So these are supposedly integers, right? But they have decimals. And remember, 0.9 is 9/10 and 0.8 is 8/10. Those are decimals. So how is it if I'm going to divide two integers into each other, how is it that I'm going to come up with no fractional part? Well, all right. So let's take a number, any number, and let's use 3. 3 divided by 4, that's a fraction. We know that. All right, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you something on this that is of use. Let me clear this, and we're going to take let's take one of these numbers that look like they don't, they've got fractions in them. Negative 6.8. It's supposed to be an integer. It's supposed to not have a fractional part. So let's type negative 6.8. Okay. Now here is where it gets kind of interesting. Go up on this calculator. Let's see if it froze up a little bit. And you'll notice that there is a button up here called the math button. If you click that math button, you get a series of commands. And you'll notice the one command here says frac. That means fraction. It's for converting to a fraction. All right, so let's hit enter. Negative 6.8 frac. Now I'm going to hit enter one more time. And negative 6.8 is composed of two numbers, negative 34, which negative 34 is all by itself, a whole number, and it's divided by 5. So you'll see this number here is a rational number. It's two whole numbers, two integers, because the integers are not fractions, divided into each other. That's the rational number. Okay? And so 1.9, same thing. I could take 1.9. I could go to the math button. I could, because it's on number 1, I could hit enter. So I get the fracs, 1.9 frac. Hit enter again. And that's 19 divided by 10. Okay? So you should be able to see now the mysteries here. You understand what a variable is, what integers are, numbers that don't have fractions in them. So 19 and 10 are integers. Negative 34 and 5 are integers. They're numbers that do not have a fraction in them. But you can take two integers, like negative 34, and divide it into 5, and you get this number, negative 6.8, and that is a rational number. Okay? All right. So we are done with today's work, and well, we're done with the presentation. So now you're to go to lesson 8.2. I told you last week, and I reminded you yesterday how to get to the IXL lesson. If you have a problem, contact me and I will show you how to do it. All right, you're on your own. Thank you. Bye-bye now.